and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am.
So hello there, beloved ones, and welcome to this month's Ascension update. This is for March. We have a beautiful month coming up, actually, and I was just sitting here outside. I was doing some tantric exercises for the cultivation process that I call the Illumined cultivation, and it's truly remarkable, you know, what we can notice occurring within the anatomy of our bodies and how everything can unfold within our body's anatomy to assist the overall process of anchoring these higher ray activity energies. So I've been sharing a lot about this, and what can I say? The cosmic ray activity is truly increasing on the planet, and you probably know that. You're aware of that in your body, and it's just going to continue to amplify and increase. I've shared with you before that each of these subsequent lunations is stirring up the energy field. It's like inviting in new magnetics, the magnetic field of the planet, as much as it's talked about as in terms of weakening. It's actually opening up. Okay, there's elements of the old that are weakening, but there's this newness that it's yet unknowable to us. And because of this unknown factor, we don't know how to define it, so we can label it in a certain way, but it's not all there is to it when we say that the magnetic field of the planet is weakening. There are new energies coming in, and they simply need to come in. As you know, this process is also quite controlled from the mainstream, as in spraying that occurs exactly a day before, or on the days when these cosmic ray activities are most intense. And I always feel this in the body. As first it becomes a state of elevation and then fatigue, and I almost get a little saturated in a way. It's almost like a little dizzy and hazy, and then I need to really do the energy work, and when I do it, my energy is uplifted again. And I'm actually recording this update at the sundown phase, because recently I've noticed the activity of the energetics playing out in a way that during the sundowns the energy has been so high, so immense, that it has uplifted me in a way that I've been doing strange things and talking to myself and singing in states of really anchoring so much passion. I was so creative for the past 2 or 3 weeks, basically the whole of February. So now March is bringing in the stabilization of that process. Okay, so I want to talk about this as well as always some of the overall energetics and astrology for the month ahead, the month that awaits us, month that we're deeply stepping into at this time. But I want to say that there's still not quite many beings who are able to seed these energies that are being introduced to the planet at this time, because they help to build a new magnetic structure. They're increasing the magnetic nature of what people call the new earth, right? The new template. It occurs with our own body's new template. And if you're aware, at the end of last year in 2018, I developed a course called the New Body Template for the Illumined Human. And it is for physical ascension process. It's supporting that. It's just increasing. So we're needing to learn to adjust to the flows, inflow and outflow of energy. So first we receive this inflow, we need to anchor it, and the anchoring process is the most intense one. So after each wave is anchored, sometimes it might last longer, sometimes it's a shorter duration, it really depends what's coming in. But that process is teaching us to stay in the body. It's all about feeling the connection to the activity at present that's playing out through the body. Okay, so we really are called to be invoked in the presence of our body. It's not enough just to breathe and meditate. This is the embodiment that's like conscious calling out. It's like guiding of these energies through the body. And as I was shown, there's not a lot of people who do this process because they're still learning to uplift their energy, to raise their personal energy so that their field can strengthen in a way, because we do need to strengthen first the overall magnetic nature of our own presence. So this month on Patreon, because this is where sorry guys, this is where most of my work is shifting right now. And on Patreon, I'm doing each month for the advanced level a course that supports the physical ascension process. And this month, it's all about the magnetic nature. That's the course that will be posted. I will be doing other things as well, but I'm going to talk about this at the end. I want to go into what's happening. Okay, so it is quite important for those of you who are tuning into like the bigger picture, what's really happening at the cosmic level. There needs to be a certain level of inner unification before we can really tap into that. So wherever you might find yourself at the path, know that it all ultimately leads you to greater and greater energetic mastery, to greater and greater expansion of your own field that can encompass a variety of different energies. Some of them feel more complex, some of them are more simple, but it's all one big conglomerate of the energy exchange that is now our planet and beyond. So, okay, I want to talk about now, sorry guys, it's a bit windy here now. So the energy of this month, which is the third month of the year, which in overall, you know, has a 3, the creatrix energy, very deeply creative energy. We've talked about this at the beginning of the year, but March is now the third month, so you can consider it like a 3-3 energy, which makes up a 15-6 energy month. And it's also a month of the equinox, as you know. It's the spring equinox here in the northern hemisphere and vice versa in the south. This 15 energy in tarot, you might know the principle, it's the devil, but in the lunar update we had a very strong and potent Virgo full moon at the ending point of February, which brought forth a crone energy. So this, in one oracle I have called the triple goddess, is represented as the crone, because it's the wisdom ingrown through you, through the mastery of shadow and light, the mastering of duality through unified polarity. It's becoming very relevant to us to do this work, because I see a lot of people still in the light worker field that are all about expanding our light, shining our light. But true mastery is not just shining the light. You can shine very brightly, but if you don't know how to direct and consciously navigate your light, you're also going to, through that process, right, become sometimes, for people who are, because there's different levels, right, people who are less aware, who are still much like less mature beings, they're going to become more self-absorbed, and this self-absorption will attract energies that are not always reflecting this higher state of integrity of the soul. Then there's various levels in between, but eventually we will have to learn that it's not enough just to be the light, right? We're shining brightly, and a lot of people on this path, and I had to go through this journey all by myself in my own way, had to learn all about this energetic mastery here on earth, not just that of the higher realms, but here on earth, how the game of duality is being played, and how the inner union of polarities can assist the coming together of this polarized opposites that are basically playing out within every single human being. So eventually we will have to learn to work in synergy with our light, to consciously filter it in ways that are wise, masterful, and I talk about this as the life force mastery path. It's not to disperse your energy, to give it away, to overextend yourself, overgive yourself. This was the main theme for quite a few years, you know, and it's brought us to developmental level in our soul, in its integrity, that we know that it's not, like I said, enough to just be the stars. You know, nowadays everyone can be a shining star in the spotlight. It's like everyone can have their own TV, right? YouTube, everyone can be a star, have their page. You don't need to now learn the complex equations of programming anymore. Everyone can have their page. It's now so simple, right? You just open up a blog or a Facebook page or whatever. But this energy for true masters of the energetics, of the new self, the new earth, illumined pathway, we're also needing to consciously engage at the energy, and that's why at the end of February these messages were coming in about conscious energy channeling and engagement, which will navigate your light in a way that's proper, that's wise. It's not just knowledge, but, you know, as many great teachers have shared before, constant state of contemplation on that knowledge, everything you gather, absorb, right? So instead of becoming too self-inflated or self-absorbed, when you enter into this conscious contemplation, you're going to be absorbed within the soul more and more. And soul has increasing levels of integrity when you do so. It will just exponentially expand and continue to do so. So this means that there will be greater and greater maturity coming forth. And that was this full moon in Virgo last month in February. That was its teaching, its wisdom. So now we have this 15/6 month. It's bringing forth still that energy, but in terms of how it will play out in energy exchange, in relationships, because 6 is also, right, the number of this exchanges, and it's Venusian as well. 6, right? We often say it's an energy of love, vibration, but it's like this exchange, conscious exchange of our light. It's like participation with the light, participation in the global network, right? So wearing our light, not lightly, but with wisdom and integrity. People who overextend themselves too much will sometimes open their fields, energetic, so widely that they will attract, like moths to the flame, people who are not always just to what or who they want to share their messages or light with. So there's quite a process. It is a process, and I've shared with you how last year I had to go through this transition because it reached a certain pivot point and I needed to close off my Facebook page, my email, personal contact, just totally eliminated, because the people that were connecting had a totally false interpretation of what I'm here to do, what's my work, what's my mission, because I want to work with people who are truly devotees of this higher ascension path and physical ascension illumined pathway. So people who will be not so integrated individuals can often misinterpret and misread that, but it's a lesson, it's a learning tool for us who walk this path to not say, oh, it's them or it's the environment, it's still so dualistic, but to see that that's our learning curve, because again, remember, even the darkness serves the light, and the dark initiates the way the light cannot. So I feel this month that wisdom will be maybe more precipitating into the collective, those who are ready, because the pioneers, the seedlings, they always anchor the energy first. Okay, so then we may share this wisdom, those who come after, but it's again, it's a synchronous dance. Okay, but again, at this point, I also want to remind you that it's somehow dangerous when I mention the word collective to think of the collective as in, you know, when people talk about divine masculine collective, divine feminine collective, this is how the energy is at this side of the camp, this is how the energy is at this side of the camp. It's not truly like this, and there's a subtle warning with this, because people who fall for this, they start to follow that which is offered to them so intensely that instead of becoming their own inner collective, which is the reservoir of all the energies that are working within you, operating through you, and beaming out, right, in synthesis, in integrity of you, all these aspects of you are unified. And rather than you choose to follow what someone says, this is how the collective feels right now. And it's almost like someone tries to sell you how you're supposed to feel and where you're supposed to be right now, currently in the soul integration. In the ancient mystery schools, no one did that. No one did readings for another in that way. When I have spirit sessions, it's a totally different level. No one tells you where you are, where you should be doing. It's a higher picture beaming on your current situation, which maybe there's blind spots that you can't see, and it assists you in knowing of what is already there within you. But it's a totally different level, because a very separate individualistic level, that where the self as a separate self is still so present, and now it's so easy to make up all these stories, right? What's happening in the collective and how we read the collective. The only collective that's real is the collective where you are right now. There's always a grouping, in massing of souls that sort of cluster together, or soul energies, right? Souls at the higher spiritual level. But here on earth, there's the soul collectives that are also merging, right? And even those collectives change. They're very dynamic, right? Because you always grow according to your own inner reservoir of knowledge, growing more and more into wisdom. And that's a very dangerous field now that people are playing in these new age terrains, where everyone can say, well, this is how the collective feels. I know because I can tap into the collective. What they're truly tapping into is the level where they themselves are Maybe there's a few people who are there, but it's somehow very dangerous to present this to others, people watching en masse nowadays, and say this is how it is. And people who are not that developed yet internally, they will take anything that's sold to them right away because they need something to grip on, to hold on to, that will give them a sense of reality, because they still don't have that inner source tuition developed, right? They don't have it as developed that would guide them naturally. It's like a natural growth occurrence that is spontaneous. You know, like I was listening to Manly P. Hall's lectures about Neoplatonism and these very basic but so profound teachings that they held about life being seen simply as a constant state of evolution. There's no savior, there's no radical inception point, and now we need that, right? Because there's growth imbued in life already. And it's all there for perfect. It's all steps, stepping stones, the soul evolution and growth. And I come from that same school of teaching, or my own doctrine as well within. For me, that's very self-obvious. But a lot of people think they need something that they can firmly hold on to, that it can give them a sense of, yes, that's happening, instead of learning how to become a master of their own self. Tap into the only resource, which is your soul, holding the right messages, everything you need. The soul is never mistaken. Whoever can be mistaken, right, is the mind, because it can often misinterpret the messages. But in truth, the soul cannot make a mistake once there is a connection. And therefore, the first build-up within us should be the build-up towards the soul consciousness. And then bringing that consciousness, which I call the soul embodiment, and then adjusting the life that we live, everyday reality, from the most mundane to the most extraordinary. It's all a part of that, and making it just or in accordance to that soul consciousness. So I feel that's very much also the energy playing at this time. It's very important. In the last message, because I'm doing now these Goddess-Venus messages on my Illumin page, Illumin Ascension page on Patreon. It was very much similar message, what is truly the collective. And so the work I do there, and with these new videos, I'm very excited when I do these, because they're at the very channel higher level, and I've just begun, but you know, I will do them very much sequentially in the right adjustment when the flow is there, to gradually uplift the energy, because I truly want to assist those beings who are ready to master themselves from the level of Illumin Union, and what that means, so that the masculine holds and the feminine, they both hold the creation aspect within themselves, within the position of knowing themselves as illumined. And then you hold, the feminine holds the space for masculine, and vice versa, from the position of where we are now in our embodiment, instead of trying to seek where the collective is supposed to be. Also, why this is somehow dangerous is, as you know, when the information is offered to someone who's not initiated into the level of that which would understand that information, which would be able to read it, decipher it, automatically respond to it within truth, not misalignment and mental distortions. That's why now it's so dangerous as well, is to give information so collectively, that now people are doing this dispersing of information, this dissemination of information that has become so distorted in so many ways, you know. And I feel like there's many ancient teachers who are watching this, and it's like they see the process. You know, I talk about this process as well, but I don't see it as wrong. I see it as a part of the human collective growth. The reason why I share it this way with you, as like this constant sharing of this, what's received and what's felt, what's seen, what's from that overseeing perspective, is because I know so many of you who tune into my videos somehow feel this in the same way, and you're already seeding the kind of consciousness that prepares those who are ready to take the next plunge. So even with that which we would see that's kind of distorted, we are making the shifts just by being aware of it, just by being present with that awareness. We're bringing those seeds so that those who are ready now will jump from this pod to the next pod, and that's all part of natural growth. There is no savior and someone who's here as a part of the special divine intervention and someone who will save the world. There is no such thing. But we're conscious influencers because we have remembered from the state of true purity and soul's genuine integrity. Okay, so that's kind of like the themes that are playing out at this time. Okay, let me see what else. So Let me now go to the astrology, and then I'm going to share some of the other things so you can see somehow how that connects. On March 6th, we begin with the new moon, which is in 15 degrees of Pisces. And then on March 20th, we have a full moon in 0 degrees of Libra. So that's one of those lunations that begin at the initiation, 0 degree, which brings in a totally new chapter. And Libra, it means it's about exchange of energy. Just like I said, a conscious exchange of energy, partnerships. It's almost like sacred contracts, but they're now not so much contractual, right? It's more like vows that are sacred, that are based on devotion, rather than, oh, I owe this, it's my obligation. It's not a duty, it's an honor. It's not, you know, shifting from it's my duty to be here and serve. A lot of people who call themselves life workers feel this way, but it's truly, again, it's the state of the separate self. Because again, the state of the whole self, the full self, is already integrated with the wholeness of the divine plan. You don't feel you need to be here as a separate individual to do this work separately or especially. And now, because of that, the whole can change. It's just a natural process. It's simple as that. And that's why beings of the highest order are usually so ordained in their naturalness, in their humility, just this ease and flow about them. And the rest of the world is trying so hard to make change. All right? So just be observant of that, how that's playing out. This 0 degrees of Libra will initiate, for those of you who are ready, a complete new pathway of how we build this relationship. So 15-6, 15 is also, it's not just the devil in tarot, right? Capricorn, which is the crone, right? The wise one, the sage. But it's also a number in numerology of alchemy. And it's just in between the 0 degrees and the 30 degrees, which is a final degree, which is somehow that which will, from the initiation to the middle point, right, holds things together. Lots coming forth, right, in awareness. That's what I feel. So March 6th and 7th, we also begin this time with Uranus moving into Taurus. This is a big shift because, as you know, Uranus is the planet which is like Zeus, right, the highest template, the Lord of the Lords. If you've watched any of the planetary videos about what the planets as stations represent, I have this in one of my Patreon courses as well. I think in the February one, I talk about these initiations through planetary deities, and Uranus would be like that final octave. And through that octave, there's just like this unification. There's this higher consciousness that's just streaming like a lightning bolt. That's also a symbol for Uranus. So when Uranus shifts signs, and this is usually a 7-year period, now we're moving into Taurus, which is earthly. It's ruled by Venus, right? It's very down to earth, decentralization process of our life force, right? It's beautiful. That's what I was talking about for years now. Our physical expression of life force. But it's not that from the physical upwards, it's that lightning bolt, that higher energies, these cosmic reactivities, now bringing them to through the sensualization, which is moving through the anatomy of our body. You can learn about the different processes in the book I'm going to share with you, much more in depth. But it's what I always feel as sensualization of life force. And that's not what most people would think it is. People think, oh, it's like making something pure into something physical. It's no longer pure. No. From the level of what I've now just said to you, what I've communicated, it's making that which is so ineffable, it's just pure lightning through the pure guidance of integrity. It has to be met with integrity through unified polarity. When beings can guide this great electricity that way through the body, that's when you have truly the meeting of Shiva and Shakti, the electricity, the magnetic nature. So kind of like Uranus and Taurus feels like this way to me. So we're going to have 7 years of mastering that. And I was preparing you, those of you who maybe have followed my work so far, for this. And I've been doing the courses for that work, such as Life Force, Tantrika Mastery Course, Cosmic Orgasm, Cosmic Dance, things like that. This is very much like this. But it's really beautiful. You can look at the house, your life area where this will change for you mostly. Just look at where Taurus falls in your chart. usually just look at the house where it is. I think for me it's the 5th house. I don't know. It's very creative, right? I've been engaged in creativity all these years now, since I moved to the Alps especially, but very much so. Anything now can deepen. This is consciousness. This is new octave of being. This is like a radical shift and change. That's why March is such a big month, because at the same time with all these shifts, we also have the equinox point, which always brings in a new alignment, a new adjustment, and we begin a new astrological year, as you know. So we also have Mercury retrograde from March 5th to 28th, and it will be in Pisces this time. But at the same time, Mercury will make some connections with Neptune. I think at 3 specific, one was already in February, 2 are coming up in March. Go check out that in certain astrological pages. I won't talk about this, dates specific. But these connections are so important because Pisces is already ruled by Neptune, and then Mercury connecting with Neptune in these conjunctions. So beautiful, because it has now, we have such a huge opportunity to radically shift in the consciousness because of this. So recently I put this picture on Instagram, and it was about really calling in for deep, luscious, juicy, radical, but deeply authentic life changes. And I said, if you're ready, sign up, yes. And you wouldn't believe, but so many people said, yes, yes, I'm ready, I'm ready. I get it. It's so beautiful to have so many yes sayers, right? So many yesers there. But you know, people sometimes still forget that we always want change. We want change. We want something to change on the outside. And we always want to manifest something. We either try hard or we desperately hope for something to change. But in many ancient traditions, it was always known that man cannot have something existing in his life if man is not already that, which means embodiment, embodiment, embodiment. So the question now arising is, but are we ready for change? We may want change, but then ask yourself, what is change for you? Because we might have different ideas of the word change. And it's beautiful because in Pleiadian Earth astrology system, each month, you know, each cycle begins, you know, these universal energies from 1 to 13. The one that begins with the 1, the cycle that first begins with the 1 during each month, has the theme that it's an earth energy described next to it, and that has an overall theme. And you can read all about that in the book. I've mentioned this book to you many, many times before in my video, so just check that out. It's by Pia Orlean. And her partner and Larkma, the Pleiadians. I've shared about this book a lot. It's a beautiful book. So it has a conscious energy of choosing. This month, that's the overall guiding line. So the question is for change, right? We have to choose change first, and that happens within. So I'm really excited. You know, so many people want change, but yet I feel people often stumble with the whole idea of what change is and how they can apply it in their life. In my synthesis course, I actually, you know, this Elohim consciousness embodiment and the illumined manifestation, which is illumined creation, the law principles within that whole orchestration of that knowing. I had to go through this stage all by myself. It was, my whole 2018 was circled around that. So the course was actually a synthesis of my own personal synthesis, and I was shown how manifestation at this illumined level is radically different from what we perceive as manifestation to be, from different angles, a variety of consciousnesses here on earth. And most people manifest through action, a lot of will, activity. But in that course, it's actually a more advanced course. So I do, as you know, I have an option that you can get all the courses together, and there's 12 of them for people maybe who start and they want to go all in. But the 13th one is not a part of that package, because I was shown how drastically important it is to really integrate all those other teachings before. It's like you embody them. You're not just learning about something, because my courses are simple and yet they're profound. There has to be inner consciousness within you that follows through that. So the 13 is not a part of that package deal, because it is separate and yet it's one, but it's so important that these, you know, be mastered first, that you don't just go in and take it just as knowledge. It has to be applied consciously. So they were showing me that it's actually radically more challenging to manifest through stillness, through just being, because we have so many fears. What if we don't move? What's going to happen? Nothing will change. My life will remain the same. And there's just still so much fear in the human collective. And we're used to doing it the distorted masculine way, the patriarchy. Always move, always be in the go, you know, create that way. Goals. You don't have any goals, you don't have any work, what are you going to do with your life? It's all so programmed, and it is so much more challenging to create this way because you have these higher forces moving through you, and the physical self sometimes doesn't know what to do with it because you always think there's more to do, but what am I supposed to do? And if the guidance is just wait for that to gestate within you, because you're now translating these energies, and then it's all going to unfold in the physical in the right divine timing. But we don't trust. So this synthesis course is so important because it's like that final step of total surrender and yet total creation. Is just like, you know, building up momentum, but when the supernova explosion happens, no one knows when it's going to happen. It's not like calculated. It just it's just an explosion, right? That's how it is, and that's how lumen creation looks like. And it's difficult to attain it because even if you are a master as a soul being, you come here in this body to serve, you have to go through the bodily reactions, impulses that are kind of like ingrained here. And this is why we have to master ourselves on earth all over again, over and over again, right? There's many beings who are not of earth consciousness. They originate elsewhere. But when we come here, it's like we're going to have to do the whole school again. It's just going to be much faster because we're doing it with a lot of background already. So this question, are we ready for change? And what does change truly mean for me? Just ask yourself this question a few times this month and see how it will expand your consciousness. Because if you just want your life to change physically, but you haven't done any work, that you truly embodied something, richness, depth, right? What if someone wants to move abroad and they so desperately want it, but they've never maybe learned English or another language? Let's say they just really want something. It's kind of like you automatically naturally feel guided to take these steps, but it has to be when you're ready. You don't do it forcefully. Oh, I have to because then I won't have this and that happen. This greater trust, this all-encompassing ovoid, it's always like a heart pulse, heartbeat of a greater cosmic nature. It's always within us. It's not just with us, it is within us, but we have to unlock the potential to be at that level. So I also took some oracles. As you know, I do an extended ascension guidance on my Patreon page, which is more channeled. It's more deep at the certain energies that are being presented. I do a light grid. I do a channeled automatic drawing. I do lunar messages as well. But again, we have the heart transmission and the karmic clearing together with perception for this month. Oh, and there's also the Ascended Master Kuan Yin and Pearl, which is Divine Rebel and Divine Mother Oracle. So again, it's really clearing the path to that which feels like there's still some restriction left perhaps, but the heart transmission will now break through, right? These kind of like obstacles that we feel are still there perhaps. So perception needs to change if change is to be a natural consequence of that. And the Divine Mother energy, which means we're needing to grow, right? Pearl, you grow a pearl. It takes a while to grow a pearl. And you're like, where does this beauty come from? All these elements, I can't see it, and all of a sudden it's a pearl. How does this happen? A lumen creation is something very similar. It just happens. It's an automatic beauty that grows from the beauty that has become just like a greater ring around, or a greater ovoid of light around that which you have already built within. So that's when change occurs. That's when new birth comes. So Pearl, right, is very much like that. It is a new growth. It is a new birth. But it has to be done the feminine way, through that nurturing, like nesting. It's for a lot of you who are shifting into the template of the new human, it has to be done through the Divine Mother's love and constant refinement of the self, rather than, oh, I want things to change, and you're so desperate about it. And such great faith is required here. That's not the same as hope something will change, but this faith that it is already changing. It's just that the invisible realm isn't always perceivable to us. As humans, sometimes we feel very limited in that way, kind of hindered. We're not always shown, like maybe you can be just at the precipice of a deep change, but you can't see it. It's almost like the magic of nature. Sometimes I go, I'm always outside if I can be. And then I go and I see there's no flowers there. And the next day there's already flower there. And I'm like, how did this happen? Or like mushrooms, they grow so fast. It's It's like, how? The mind cannot make up a story here. But it just happens. It's magic. It's life. It's life that is untainted by the mind that has a sense of formulating ideas that are such and such, right? So it's very important now also to synchronize with our path. Again, move from that, what is the collective, and constantly tuning into what other people are saying about where the collective energies are. You don't want to be part of the collective. You want to be an ascension pioneer. You want to be an illumined being. If you're watching these videos, I'm sure that's your aim. If you're watching just out of curiosity, then that's perhaps not your aim. If you're watching because, again, you hope for me to say something that will happen is in terms of what I'm reading in the collective, then again, you're mistaken. As you know, I didn't do that. There is a danger of getting lost in the collective or receiving information prematurely when the soul is not at the level of integrity that can nurture that into true being. And that's when change occurs. Okay, so all of the information, the sacred knowledge, truly is not for all. And anytime we overextend ourselves thinking, oh, but I need to dismantle it in a way, disseminate this knowledge for all. Remember in the previous video I've read to you from the Melchizedek and the Mystery of Fire from Manly P. Hall talks about the same thing, and why initiation mystery schools were created in that way. Because they needed to eliminate those who weren't worthy to be at the level to understand. They would either disobey, they would distort the knowledge, they would share with the wrong people, it could come in the wrong hands. It happened many times before, even with all this, not secrecy in a way, but the level of what is appropriate and that to be met. And that's so important. But now we are turning into the mystery schools. Those of you who are stepping into your own mastery, you are becoming the living mystery school. If only you're really traveling through the road less traveled, the road of self-integrity, rather than the interesting appeals to the mind, which is now so popularized, right? So I'm going to read you actually a chapter from Melchizedek and the Sacred Fire. I want to recommend this book to all of you who have taken the Tantrika Life Force Mastery course, because it's a deeper insight into some of the things that are already in the course. It's actually just a 50-page book. It's like 50 pages, but it's so condensed. It's like so much knowledge, so much richness and depth as always in these. It's like mini scripts. They're so valuable, really, truly. I want to read you one part here, okay? The reason why I've chosen that part, and it's about, you'll see, it's a sense of duality, but it's also coming into unity. And if I read you that higher perspective, perhaps you're going to have a high understanding, because it also deals with what I've been writing here, the clearing our distorted views of being there for all, overgiving, overexposing our energy, overextending our energy, which can backfire many times in brings back to us inauthenticity, what's incongruent with us, or attracting these sort of wrong or inappropriate energies, what people call the energy vampires. Well, the reason why they're called vampires is just because they're hungry. Their souls are crying out for help. But the mind of the individual, who can sometimes in extreme ways can be also very mentally ill, these individuals do not know. Their minds have been so fragmented, they think it's all okay. They think it's normal to be that way. So first, they, as you know, they have to admit they need help. They need to become whole again from within. And for that reason, right, these beings don't know their souls through these acts, which sometimes can be like preying on others. You know, it's like if you're any kind of internet online parasite or prey on other, people call these predators, or all these kind of words. I don't know what they are, but it's just an inadjustment of what is internally a cry of the soul for help and assistance, and the misinterpretation at the human level, which the person thinks, no, I just need to contact this person, or I need to be this way to other, which, and you know, in so many cases, because there's no inner congruency, there's no integrity, these people always plash out their opinions, and you know, that's the reason why I don't hold that kind of level of exposure. I don't have comments, as you know, disabled, because I don't want to, it's not a part of my purpose here. I don't want to overextend my light. I want to work my light and share it with the appropriate audience, however small that group to be, but that's meaningful for my path and the unfoldment of these beings who come, who are ready to be met and served at that level. And this is what I serve, right? Yeah, my buzzard bird is saying yes. I love these birds. They're always chirping when it's time. So because of this, these opinionated beings, they're just throwing words out. You know these people, right? Or just saying things. They have zero contemplation in their life. They cannot internalize before they externalize, and that gets very a lot of tossing and turning, and it's like very much entropy built just within relationship dynamics here. So it's focusing on numbers and status and being the light, that also can be misleading for a lot of light worker beings, because it's important for us to be true to our integrity rather than pleasing or thinking, oh, I have this amount of audience. I've told you that before. Whatever you do, it doesn't have to be video work. It can be anything you do in groups with people, whatever, how you perceive you're being seen, like out in the spotlight. It's not always what people think to be in the spotlight is or means. But it has to be met with integrity. You can be the most physically invisible person, but you know how to shine your light. You know how to reflect that light. You know how to consciously navigate it. You might have someone who might have thousands of fans and followers, but again, who are these beings? How are these energies in conscious relationship? That's really important this month. Again, I've shared with you 15-6 month. That's all about that. 0 degrees of Libra, initiation point, conscious relationship. That's all playing out now. And has nothing to do with the collective, but it has to do with what needs to or is naturally already evolving on Earth. That's why we have such an astrology. It's already imbued in the pattern. It's not like we have to work hard for it. We just have to show up and yes, do the work, but not work hard for it. We just have to be aware of the impurities and inconsistency and devotions and consistencies that we bring through our own integrity. So it's not so much focusing on number status, right? Because many times when people start doing their light work, so to say, they get too much into the appearance of it all. And that will also attract to them beings who will just show to them the lack of integrity. Beings like predators, and if you worry too much about how you will be seen, that's what you will get. At the final level of this key surrender point of just being so self-assured in your nature that you are the highest mission. Therefore, every transmission that always comes through you in any given way, whether you're most invisible there somewhere in the middle of the mountains or, working somewhere in the city, it doesn't matter. That you are in integrity, that is the most important key. It's not how many views or people you have around you. Because again, it's who's watching and how the energy is being exchanged. That's important, not how many, in the numbers. So we have to leave these old ways, because that is true separation. It's trying to place all in the sameness. This is a sense of false oneness. It's like trying to join a community when you don't know first your own spot. What's your own originality and uniqueness of soul being and what you contribute to the whole. You just want to get merged in the whole, and people want to heal and help everyone. So we have to know how to close our energy as well. This great balance between opening our fields and then contracting, right? I'm very unavailable to most because Spirit is teaching me that way. At a certain general, broader level, I can feel available, but my energy doesn't work that way. And it was quite a long journey of mastering that. So these lesser things they needed to teach me these lessons of how to be in Earth here, wearing my mastery, my garment of light. They had to occur a certain way. And I'm actually very grateful for them that they were a part of these darker initiations, because otherwise, just staying in the light doesn't really do the work. It's not enough, like I said, just to shine the light. It's how we do it and how the integrity is there above it all. Okay? So this false sense of oneness can make us feel like, oh, I'm so bright because then my light goes out to everyone. That's what gets the moth to the flame. We don't have to be bright. We have to be transparent in a way, because everyone wants to be bright, shine brightly. It's one aspect, an element of light. But true transparency is light used with wisdom. It's applicable to all situations, to all levels, and it's much wiser than that which we believe it's the light that shines. The light that shines can blind, right? It's the light that is transparent, benevolent, that creates true works of art. And it took me quite many years of serving myself, serving others, being of service, this conscious exchange, that it got me to a space when I'm truly strong now in my energy. Whatever happens, it's like you're unwavering. It takes a lot of courage, devotion, and completeness within yourself, which means meeting even those aspects that feel darker, that button pushers, and meeting them at the level of the soul, seeing that, oh, it's it's a soul cry baby, right, crying out, but at the physical level you also see what it is. Because there's people who only see the soul level and they would overextend themselves at the physical level of the connection. Again, they invite in physically the wrong energies. And then there's people who only see the physical without the soul. The union is seeing both. And that's why now I want to read you from the book, okay? This aspect, which is so important. The first part I want to read here is about the Elohim. It's a short paragraph. Okay, as you know, I do, and I hope I will do more in the future. I don't know, Elohim channelings. So it talks about the Old Testaments, how they were to be considered not literally, but concealed between its lines were certain secret teachings without which the true meaning of the Hebrew writings cannot be discovered. They would no longer laugh at the pagans for their plurality of gods, for they would discover that they themselves, if faithful followers of their scriptures, are polytheists. So this is from the Melchizedek and the Sacred Fire, the mystery of fire. The word Elohim, as used in the early chapters of Genesis and translated God, is a masculine, feminine, plural word meaning a number of gods who are androgynous and not one supreme deity. A lot of people still interpret it like that, but it's not the truth. They would realize that Adam was not a man but a species, a race of creatures. They would also realize that the Garden of Eden was not located in Asia Minor. So then it talks about many things, and I won't go into it. I really advise you. This is one of the brightest books. It's just so good. It has 3 chapters, actually. It has first I think it's the introduction, the fire, the universal deity. It talks about the sacred fire from the perspective of what does it mean to worship the fire, where the symbolism is held, what is the higher meaning of it all, right? The second part is man, the grand symbol of the mysteries, the anatomy of the man. And the third part is the sacred fire in the spine and the brain. It's the most brilliant part. So, talking about this duality, let me get to this beautiful part. So, in the secret societies of all ages, Charles Heckathorn, I don't know how to pronounce it, sorry, gives an old Kabbalistic legend in connection with the relation of early masonry to the worship of fire. And he talks about here the meaning of the word masonry, which you know now is also so misunderstood. Talks about mass meaning the sun, child, Frey meaning Frey being a child, sun, mass, right? So together, Meson being children of the sun, the sons of light. And then it talks about the meaning behind the sons of light. So in this legend, in connection with the relation of early masonry to the worship of fire, according to this legend, Hiram Abiv was not a descendant of Adam or Jehovah, as were the sons of Set, but was born of a nobler race, for in his blood ran the fire of Samael, one of the Elohim. Further, there are 2 kinds of people in the world, those with aspiration and those without. Those without aspiration are the sons of Seth, true children of the earth, who cling to their parent with tenacity, and the key word of their nature is earthiness. There is another race who are sons of fire, for they are descendants of Samael, the region of fire. These flame-born sons are ever fired with ambition and aspirations. They are the builders of cities, the raiser of monuments, the conquerors of worlds, the pioneers, the workers in metals, true sons of the eternal flame. Fiery and tempestuous are their souls, and earth to them is a burden. Jehovah does not answer their prayers, for they are sons of another star. That is so true. Aspiration is the keynote of their nature, and again they raise, phoenix-like, from the ashes of failure. Never will they rest, like the element of which they are a part. They are wanderers upon the face of the earth, with their eyes upon the flaming star from which they came. For me, that's so beautiful, because I always talk about myself as flaming. It's like a flaming ball of fire that's rolling in the cosmos. I'm so hyperactive, always creating more, expanding. It's like this never goes out, this fire in me, and whatever difficulties or challenges come, they only spark that even more. So this is so beautifully written. I'm going to continue reading. This fundamental difference is plainly visible in daily life. Some are always centered. Others never reach the goal. Some are the sons of water, the keepers of flocks. Others are sons of fire, the builders of cities. One group is conservative, the other is progressive. One is the king, the other the priest. But within the nature of every living thing, the sons of fire and the sons of water exist together. In the scriptures, the flame-born ones are called the sons of God, and the water-born are referred to as the daughters of men. I've talked about this before in the sacred marriage video. For the flame-born son is the divinity in man, and the water-born is the humanity in man. These two brothers are deadly enemies, but in the mysteries, they are taught to cooperate one with the other and are symbolized in Freemasonry as the double-headed eagle of the 33 degrees. As you know, there's also 33 vertebrae in the spine. According to the ancient wisdom, a time will come when man has two complete spinal systems, both equally developed, and his life will be controlled by two powers working in unity, one with the other. I've talked about this in one of my channelings a few years back, the extraterrestrial meeting the terrestrial and how these energy exchanges are occurring. It was a beautiful channeling, very similar. To express this, the ancient alchemists symbolized attainment as a two-headed figure, one head male and the other female. The androgynous Ishwara, the planetary lord of the Brahmins, has the right half of his body male and the left half female to symbolize that he is the archetype for the ultimate human race. Man then being positive and negative in one, will no longer reproduce himself as the present time. So it's your innate, internal, and androgynous nature that will create a new spin-off of the human being. One of the ancient mysteries taught that the end of all things is like the beginning plus the experience of the cycle. And someday the human race will give birth to its new bodies out of its own nature, as certain primitive animals still do. Then indeed will man be his own father and his own mother, complete in himself, birthing the new form, which is the divine child. Initiation makes possible this process in man much earlier than the natural sequence of human evolution would permit it. So there's evolution, so natural, and then there's a triggering, which is your own inner choice to enter into soul alchemy, becoming self-born. I've been talking about becoming self-born for quite a while now and what this means, and this is exactly described here. So such is the true mystery of Melchizedek, king of Salem, the priest king, priest water king fire, who was his own father and his own mother, and in whose footsteps all initiates follow. So the highest of all occult orders, which exist only in the inner world, may be called the Order of Melchizedek, although among certain nations it has other names. So it talks about that this order is composed entirely of the graduates of other mystery schools who have actually reached the point where they can give birth to their present selves out of their own natures. This is what means to be self-born. And I talk about this in some of my courses. I think also in the New Body course, I talk about what this self-born means and 3 levels of birth, right? The last level is self-born level, this descended ascension. So the phoenix talks about the phoenix that builds its nest out of flames, which is exceedingly significant. And the secret order of Melchizedek can never appear in the physical world while humanity is constituted according to its present plan. It is the supreme mystery school, and if you have reached the point where they have blended their divine and human nature so perfectly that they are symbolically two-headed, the heart and the mind must be brought into perfect equilibrium before true thinking or true spirituality can be attained. The spirit is neither male nor female, but both an androgynous entity. The perfect manifestation of the androgynous spirit must be through an androgynous body, which is self-generating. That's exactly what I channel myself in all these mastery courses I develop, and I was reading through this. It was just a beautiful union with what I received and what's shared here through ancient occultism. I really advise it, especially to those of you who've taken the Tantric Life Force Mastery course, or those of you who still want to take the course. Consider this one to go along the teaching. The last thing I want to share, I hope you enjoyed this, by the way, is that my work is changing. I've been notifying you about this many times before. I was gradually pushing towards this, and especially with the equinox point, it's going to radically change because we have a new astrological year, and it was shown this is the time for change. So as you know, my work is moving to Patreon. This is a template where I assist beings who want to create their own template of a lumen union. We do readings there. Now I do these goddess sessions. They're more channeled. The messages are different. There are courses for the advanced level. Each month I choose something that feels it's aligned with that theme. So specifically it's meant to assist beings who really want to go this physical ascension path and feel that what I offer somehow meets them and resonates with them, and where they're currently at, or where they really feel they want to move towards. It doesn't matter. So it's really changing, and I will still be doing these monthly updates here. I don't know how many other videos I would be doing, probably less and less. That's what I feel in my heart. It just feels right. I'm so enthusiastic when I do Patreon videos, although the group there is much smaller, but it feels more authentic, more aligned with where the energy of the life force wants me to go now and what I'm creating there. So, and I think that's it. But the last update is now I've completed the trilogy of light in terms of my music, which are sort of like light activations, but at a higher level, which is just essence coming through. So as you know, I had songs of the cosmic beloved, songs of the beloved, then I had songs of creation. Now this third aspect, because I do always create everything in trilogy of light, it's always a divine trinity. Oh, there's a spider there. Yeah, he's confirming that new creation is born. And the last album is actually called Songs of Illumined Union, and there's a video coming up about that, which maybe you will see. It's like always I do music video to just like take a little of the extract from there, little excerpt, and it's just a beautiful finish. I think it's like the essence of that, the third creation, is how Illumined Union is felt in your body and how this meeting point occurs. And it's like, you know, the first video was like, the first song compilation was like calling for that illumined beloved. It felt like you're calling it from the above, you're seeding it. And it was the illumined creation, right? The songs of creation, rejoicing with life, recognizing that it's there, it's all there is. And in the third, in the trilogy of light, this compilation called the Songs of Illumined Union, it's about now rising up from this, right? Falling down into creation, like beloved falls down on earth, remembers what it is with all life, this unity, and then it rises back up like a phoenix, and it creates this merge, this completion within itself. The divine child is born, and it's beautiful songs there. So it's 11 songs, plus I always do intro and outro. I love doing that. It's very simple, but it's so heart-based. You know, when actually I finally created it to the very end, I was listening to some of the songs and I just started crying because they moved me. And it was funny how you move yourself, but it's the spirit moving through you that moves you. And it's just in the essence of it all. So it's 11 songs for the 11 energy exchange. So it's kind of like 11, right? Mirrors, the pillars of light, Illumined Union, 1-1. So it's all about that. So now it's getting really chilly. I hope March won't be like that, although we do have some snow predicted because February was that amazing and beautiful and sunny. So I do send you warm heart space hugs from where I am. I embrace you with so much love, wisdom, and power as always. I hope you will have an amazing March, and I hope to see you on Patreon, where so much more will be presented throughout the month. And I will see you when I see you. Enjoy. Bye bye, beautiful ones.